Welcome back into the film room. I'm your host, Eric Turner, and as always, joined by Anthony Prohasker from Disguise Coverage. What is going on, Ant?
Man, who would have thought the season would go by? I feel like the season went by so fast. We're sitting here. This is like the last or second to last, potentially like regular season film room episode. We're in 2022.
I
I feel like
know.
we just were getting excited for the preseason and talking about preseason stuff. And man, the season's been a blur. The holidays have been a blur. You've only got one more week down there in Texas. Like you're close to coming back
Yes.
home. There's a lot of stuff going on, and we've got a Bills game to talk about. Like it's a lot, man, but I'm excited and I'm happy.
Yeah, it was I know it was against the Falcons, but it's
Yeah.
it's still
It's
a
still
big
it
win.
counts.
It counts, and it more importantly, it clinched a playoff berth for the Bills, the 29-15 win against the Falcons. And a lot of people are calling it an ugly win, but as we will see in the film, and as a former running back, I don't see it as an ugly win just because of how well the Bills ran the ball and the multitude of ways they ran the ball. But I want to get your thoughts on, Josh Allen and the Bills offense, starting with the passing game. Like, what was the issue? What did the Falcons do to really hamper Josh Allen, the passer?
I think it starts with Dean Pease, their defensive coordinator. He's a really well-traveled, well-seasoned defensive coordinator. I think most people are familiar with him from his time in Baltimore, and
Mm-hmm.
he's a really good DC. And in big time games like this, I think he's got the ability to scheme some stuff up and cook some stuff up for Josh. And I think a lot of it came down to the looks that they were presenting to Josh. You and I were DMing last night about, I basically was DMing you about some of the things that I was seeing Atlanta do that I was super excited that they were doing, like running their two robber looks, and then, running almost like a Tampa 2, but having their safety be that Brian Urlacher Tampa 2 linebacker
That
role,
deep
dropping
middle
in the,
hole
yeah,
player. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
after
Something I
like,
talked about prior to the game. Like they'd have that safety kind of like in a nickel roll fringe of the box.
yes,
And then as soon as the ball was snapped, he would drop to the middle of the field as that deep middle
yes.
player in that Tampa 2 look. So it was some interesting looks that they gave Josh Allen for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And then so you're taking those more, like, I don't want to say exotic, but those more exotic types of coverages, and then you're still mixing in your regular zone and your man, two high, single high. They did a good job of that. I was like literally charting the plays because SIS doesn't upload in time for
Yeah.
us here on the film room to see the tendency report. So I was just charting them, and I had up until the end of the game, I didn't really count the end because with all the running plays and everything,
Yeah.
but they had 21 zone coverages. They had 14 man coverages. They had 20 single high, 5 2 high, several of the two robber looks. Like they were doing a really good job of just mixing and matching and then executing, obviously, and then also getting physical. We saw several plays from the corners and the linebackers of just trying to get physical with Beasley and Stephon Diggs and making things dirty and nasty. We saw a lot of chippiness on the field. So as much as the Bills didn't execute, I feel like that was a big takeaway from fans initially, that it was like, well, the Bills just weren't executing and Josh had a bad game, this and that. I think some of it, you have to tip your hat to Atlanta. I think they had a good game plan. They mixed it up. They disguised some coverage well. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And then they
Mm.
executed and got physical. They played a decent game, especially considering how poor they were coming into this game and how bad they are across several metrics, whether it's raw stats or advanced metrics like DVOA. This was not a good unit, but they brought it in several ways. And part of the way that they brought it was the reason the Bills had to pivot in the second half and do some different things.
Yeah, Josh finished 11 for 26, 120 yards,
Mm.
no touchdowns, and 3 interceptions through the air. And I thought Josh's main issue in this game was touch. Last week we were spoiled against the Patriots, right? There were so many plays against the Pats where Josh was just, we call it pulling the string, right? He was just pulling the string, dropping it in there. And this week was the complete opposite. And I'm sure the weather had something to do with that. The physicality against the wide receivers had something to do with that. The footing of the turf had something to do with it. There were multiple plays where, primary alerts or wide receivers and concepts were just falling to the ground. Guys are falling to the ground. We saw Diggs on the interception. Diggs was going to the corner.
Oh, yeah.
He slips in in the end zone, and Josh extends the play and ends up throwing an interception. So I thought Josh struggled with pace, with touch, and that ability to, pull the string.
Yeah.
And so I think that was reflected in a lot of his numbers as we just took a look at, courtesy of Pro Football Focus. And, thank goodness that he was able to lean on the Bills offensive line, and he was able to lean on Devin Singletary and Zach Moss to a certain extent. And in the post-game pressers, you heard Mitch Morse say that it was a testament to the evolution of the team. And he was referring to the team, but this episode, what we're going to focus on is the evolution of the Bills offense. And I'm not just talking about, them being able to pivot and lean on Devin Singletary, the Bills offensive line, and running the ball, but some of those players that they leaned on and how they have evolved. Guys like Devin Singletary, who worked on speed and acceleration in the offseason, but really over the last 2 weeks in the pass and run game has brought, he's brought his muscle, he's brought his physicality. Guys like Ryan Bates being inserted into a lineup and his athleticism making a difference, as you'll see on the film, on a lot of these run plays and even some of the pass plays. And then, of course, Anthony and I both have always defended Mitch Morse.
Our man.
We're going to get into some of his film in the passing game and how, not just his athleticism and helping the pass game on some of those pop sets, but also for the last few weeks, a lot of people, especially in our Slack channel, have been criticizing Bobby Johnson, the offensive line coach, and how he hasn't really developed anyone and how they're not really adjusting to how defenses are, pressuring them with 2 and 3 man stunts, but 4-man rushes. Well, I'm sorry. This game, Mitch Morse, that Bills offensive line, they were prepared. And you got to give kudos to Bobby Johnson when it comes to that. So we're not just going to talk about the evolution of and the pivot of the Bills running the ball against the Falcons. Again, like you said, kind of not a really good unit overall, but some of those players that really stood out. So with that said, man, I'll throw it to you real quick. Like, who were some of the guys on offense? Maybe some guys I mentioned and I didn't mention that stood out, and maybe some things even schematically that stood out to you in this game.
From a schematic perspective, I think the addition of Ryan Bates has been nice because we've seen through the back half of the season, the Bills take advantage of the athleticism of Mitch Morse and Spencer Brown and start to use these pin and pull runs where they can get those guys out in space and do some things. And now Ryan Bates kind of fits that mold. I was super shocked. I did not know. I saw the RAS score of Ryan Bates that people were posting on Twitter. He had I think a 9.54 out of 10 RAS coming out of college, which it makes sense when you watch him, but I didn't know that off the top of my head. His athleticism has, I think, contributed to some of the changes we've seen in the Bills run game and changes in what they've done up front. And so that's a big schematic thing, while also highlighting a player. You talked about Morse, but I thought Deion Dawkins was really good in this game. And another person, people in the post-game show were talking about where was Dawson Knox, no targets, no catches. I didn't care because Dawson Knox was phenomenal in the run blocking aspect in this game.
It was nice.
And that is another piece, right? I think so much of the conversation about Dawson Knox this year was talked about preseason of, could he take that jump in his receiving game, his route running, his hands, all that type of nuance.
Just catching it. Yeah.
1,000%, just catching the ball. People really weren't talking about what does he look like from an inline perspective? What does he look like in the run game? But that's really where so much of his value can be going forward, because truly dominant tight ends are two-way tight ends. Tony Gonzalez was a phenomenal receiving tight end. He was a great blocker. Antonio Gates was a better blocker than people realize. Rob Gronkowski, not so great of a person, tremendous blocker, tremendous receiver. Those type of dual threat tight ends give you so much. And Dawson Knox, a lot of what he's done this year, people are paying attention to the receiving aspect, but his run blocking has gotten better this year. And this game, I thought it was really on display on several of these runs where he just latched on to guys and showed power and technique, and it was really impressive.
Yeah, a lot of those inline type runs out of shotgun where they're running pin and pull, he's got to execute a down block, or he was scooping to the second level and picking up athletic line. The Falcons linebackers are so good. Deion Jones,
Oluokun.
Oluokun is literally one of the best linebackers, and I'm talking consistency. He is literally one of the best linebackers in the league that no one even knows about. I love watching his film. It's a type of film at the Scouting Academy, which I attended years ago. He's the type of guy and player that all the coaches and evaluators at the Scouting Academy be like, hey, this is the guy you need to go watch, because this is the baseline of what a good linebacker looks like at the NFL level. Like, his film is so much fun, and it's just consistent. He always does everything right. He's always in the right position. And Dawson Knox, again, in line, in space, like, his blocking was critical in this game. I'm glad you mentioned him. He definitely stood out in some of the film, and you're going to see it today when we break down some of the film. So without further ado, let's jump into this, Anthony. We have several plays. I want to say we're up in the 20s as far as what plays we're going to look at. And, most of the passing stuff it's not going to be good from Josh Allen. But as we always do, we want to cover the good and the bad. And we're going to try to, add some objectivity to his film. But we're going to start with this first drive. It's the first quarter, first and 10 situation, ball on the 31-yard line, 9:25 on the clock. Just a short pass to Cole Beasley for 13 yards to the bottom of the screen. And it's really that option route from him in the slot with Gabe Davis, the outside receiver, going down the field. I mean, we've seen this play several times over the years, and I love how decisive he was. And he stood out. Josh Allen stood out as far as a passer goes on that first drive, in that first quarter. That's when things were kind of, going really well, and he was seeing the defense really well. And the Falcons kind of kept it vanilla. But on this play, Ant, I want you to start off with that supporting cast. Mitch Morse on this play, executing that pop set, man. I'm going to throw it to you right off the bat, because he did this, I think I counted 4 times in this game, and that's the most I've ever seen him do this in one game. I posted the clinic from Bobby Johnson over the summer of, them in practice executing and practicing this pop set. But I have never seen him execute it this many times in a game.
Yeah, it was almost like I have in my game notes, so I'll take notes of players and plays, pretty much every single play when I'm watching the game. And I just have like pop set written like all over, like over and over again on my notes. And then in going through these plays too, I just kept laughing because I think it's legitimately like four plays that we have highlighted in this episode. He's executing that pop set. And it's really nice. And just in case people don't know, so a pop set is basically, normally the center is setting the depth of the pocket, but in a pop set, he'll drop back and he'll literally like pop out and drop in between the guard and tackle, or even sometimes outside the tackle, and pick up a free rusher or somebody on a blitz or somebody on a stunt. And then basically the center will set the width of the pocket, and the guard and the tackle will set the depth of the pocket. So it's a way for your offensive line to adjust with games, specifically stunts, but also blitzes and things. And those are several things, like you mentioned in the lead-in here, people were clamoring for. How come we're not seeing adjustments up front? How come we're not seeing this? We're getting beat on stunts against Tampa and Carolina, so on and so forth. This is a nice piece of adjustment here. And just look how Mitch Morse fits up that free rusher.
Yeah.
We've talked so much this year about his athleticism in the run game. This is another example of his athleticism on display. The awareness and the wherewithal to drop back, realize where that rusher is coming from, pick up his man, and then we're still on the same page. Look at that pocket. A nice clean pocket for Josh Allen to sit, a nice tall QB who can stand upright. He can survey the field. He can find the open or soft spot in the coverage. You mentioned it, like early in this game, Josh was decisive in his throws. This is a perfect example. He's decisive. He's quick. He makes a good throw. Part of the reason he's able to do that is because of the protection he gets from this offensive line. And it starts with that pop set from Morse and Bates next to him executing on basically one-on-one on a really good defensive tackle in Grady Jarrett. And
this is like the awareness from Mitch Morse is just incredible on this play. So, a lot of times when teams run these 3-man stunts, and like I said, it goes back to that Jaguars game. It goes back to that Jags game where, they were slanting these guys inside. I know this one's a little different. They were slanting these guys inside and bring a linebacker over here, or again, maybe even just bringing this guy right here that is on Dawson Knox. Look how well this is disguised. Number 3 is over Dawson Knox in what looks to be man coverage, but on the snap, what ends up happening, he comes, and then you see the linebacker go over and pick up Dawson Knox. Like, this is incredible in awareness, but as you said, this really lightens the load and makes it simple for a guy like Bates, who, again, he's had limited playing time, and he's playing against Jarrett right here. Grady Jarrett, a top 5 defensive tackle in the league. But this keeps it simple. Instead of just sliding the entire offensive line this way to account for, whatever 3 of those 4 guys to the left side of the offensive line come, instead of just sliding that and stressing him, because you see Jarrett, he dives and spikes inside. So now, if this were a normal slide protection or a half-man protection, Bates would pass Jarrett on to Morse, and then would have to come back out here and try to pick up this second-level defender
which
late.
is hard on a free running
incredibly
fast
difficult.
Defender.
Yes. So what do? Let's keep it simple. Dawkins, you're locked on the edge guy, number 55. Bates, you're locked on Jarrett here. And guess what? Morse, help him out if he needs it. But if not, you can pop out. You can pop set and go pick up number 3. And you do that incredibly well on this play in the entire game. So it's good work by Bates as well. His athleticism looking to just mirror Grady Jarrett. Again, kind of a decoy on this play. Hey, follow me. Let me get this free runner at Josh Allen. Josh Allen stands in there. Mitch Morse puts himself between the rusher and his quarterback, and you have an easy 13-yard completion to Cole Beasley. And, we saw this several times in this game, and trust me, we're going to get to him again. Mitch Morse executing that pop set again. So we're going to move forward in the first quarter, 3rd and 10 situation. Ball's at the Atlanta 30-yard line on the right hash, 7:10 on the clock. Bills are in a shotgun, and this is just a 15-yard in-breaking route to Gabriel Davis, and really probably one of the better throws from Josh Allen on the day. To the top of the screen, you see Beasley stacked over the top or under Gabriel Davis in man coverage, and you have a big receiver break into the middle of the field. He creates separation, and again, Josh stands in there and makes that throw. And the hit on Gabriel Davis kind of worried me because he kind of took a big hit on the hip. But it's another one of those plays. Look at the communication between Mitch Morse and Ryan Bates. They're like, hey, it looks like they may be sending some pressure off the edge. And just watch the interior offensive line. Again, you have Grady Jarrett and a zero technique right over Mitch Morse. You have the linebacker Oluwakan, 54, and then you have number 3 again, kind of that like hybrid type player that was used in and around the line of scrimmage, like Jamie Collins of the Patriots last week. But look at the interior offensive line sliding and then just working together to execute against this twist. And again, look at Bates again staying square, Morse hanging in there, Williams in there as well. I mean, a really nice pocket for Josh Allen to deliver an in-breaking route down the field to Gabriel Davis.
I know we're not highlighting Falcons players, but it's watching Oluwakan 54. He's so smooth, like coming up like he's blitzing, and then watch how smooth he just shuffles and just takes Singletary like right out of the play. Like, it's just a really good job from him. But that pocket right there, if you leave it frozen, another example of a good pocket being set in terms of both width and depth. And look at the passing window Josh Allen has. Like, this is huge. Like, he's protected from Dawkins on the edge. Bates has done, like you said, another good job on Jarrett. You've got Morse and Darrell Williams setting everything up front. It's a nice, comfortable throwing alley, throwing lane pocket for Josh Allen. And this coverage, too, was also a nice piece that I liked what Atlanta did. They ran cover 1 on here, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And then they also bracketed Stephon Diggs on the bottom. So Diggs goes up, and AJ Terrell, who had a really good game for the Falcons, which was nice because I was pumping him up on Twitter all week. He lets Diggs go by. He stays underneath. He's got the other defender up top. So again, another, not the craziest or most complex thing in the world, but another wrinkle from this Falcons defense where they're going man coverage and it's cover 1, but they're also running a bracket over Stephon Diggs. And when you're bracketing Stephon Diggs, someone else has to make a play. And lo and behold, as it's been so much in the back half of this year, it's Gabriel Davis running a good route on a somewhat slick field, uses his body, jumps up, secures the ball. And I think it's so funny that you mentioned it. When I saw him get hit during the broadcast, I was so scared because I thought his knee bent, but then he just popped up like it was nothing. And I was like, okay, he's good. And that's also a good piece too, that Gabriel Davis route. Like, he cuts that route off. He stays square. He uses his body to get in good position and make himself a good available target for Josh. We've said it so many times in these film rooms the last several weeks of the receivers getting square to Josh and showing their numbers and making themselves available. And Davis does it here, and we get a nice completion to continue this drive.
Yeah, and we're gonna cap this drive off with a touchdown. First quarter, 2nd and 1 situation, 3:19 on the clock. Bills are in shotgun, and this is that 1 yard touchdown run from Josh Allen. And I have some of the stats up there on the screen, as you can see. Allen completed a first down 50% of the time as a runner in this game. He had obviously 2 touchdowns as a runner, and then 4.7 EPA as a runner. And I believe that was SIS, not in just this game, but overall as a runner. So he's effective. All right. Like, he's effective as a runner. I don't think that surprises anyone. Everyone's been clamoring for the Bills to run Josh Allen left and right, especially when you get into the red zone, like we see here. He just converts, those short yardage situations. He's money. Let's just keep it simple. He's money in those situations. And for weeks, people have been saying, hey, run Josh Allen more, run Josh Allen more. And I mean, they kind of haven't they, Anthony?
Yeah, we pulled some numbers beforehand. And so granted, there's still 1 week technically, well, not even technically left in this season, but all things are equal in terms of regular season games played last year versus this year. And in 2020, the Bills had 44 QB design runs for Josh Allen. This year, as of right now, the Bills have 52 for Josh Allen. So 8 more this year versus last year, but nothing crazy, nothing out of the ordinary. And it goes along with some of the things we talked about again in the beginning of this episode of the Bills making adjustments and having to do different things. And part of the benefit of having a dual threat quarterback is the dual threat piece, the fact that they can be dangerous in 2 areas. And Josh's dual threat ability is with his arm and with his legs. And
he's not always going to have that option, right? Bruce and I always talk about, traits give you options, right? And let's face it, Josh is not going to be able to do some of the stuff years down the line, 7, 8 years down the line that he can do right now. And so winning in these ways, like, if you have it in the arsenal, if you have it in the toolbox, why not use it, right?
Especially on a day where things aren't clicking with the passing part of the game. So it's nice to have a QB, because if you're just, we'll just use a regular example. If Matt Ryan isn't making things work with his arm, you had to hope that Mike Davis or Cordero Patterson or somebody in the running game is going to do it, because he doesn't have the legs that a mobile quarterback does. But with Josh Allen, okay, Allen's arm isn't doing some things. Okay, can we lean on our running game with our running backs? Okay, can we also lean on the legs of our quarterback? Yes. So I think it's very fair to say that it's not ideal to run your quarterback. I don't want Josh taking any hits, but if it's a necessity to get the win and to get championships, then it is what it is, and it needs to be a part of this offense. And luckily, we had that as a necessity and as an available option on Sunday because the Bills needed it against Atlanta. And I mean, this play right here is a perfect example, like taking advantage of your mobile quarterback, and the line executes up front, and we get a beautiful touchdown.
Yeah, so you have that eye candy, right? You have McKenzie on the right side of the screen here to the left of the formation. Yes. Yeah. And so you have McKenzie and Knox and Gilliam in like a tight bunch to the left of the formation. He's the eye candy. You get 2 down blocks at the point of attack from Knox and Gilliam. I mean, this is one of those plays that you were referencing about Dawson Knox and even Gilliam for that matter. Like, they are the tone setter. They are the alley setter on this play. And you see Dawson Knox on number 98 right there. Boom. I mean, he puts him into basically the B gap, and that really sets the edge and creates that alley and allows guys like, they brought in, because this was after the Dawkins throw. So they brought in the other Tommy Doyle, and then it allowed Mitch Morse to get on the perimeter as well. And they kind of cleaned things up. I mean, this was a walk-in touchdown for Josh Allen, and it started up front with Dawson Knox and even Gilliam for that matter.
I think that's a good point. I think we've been talking about pin and pulls so much on this show and on Twitter. And I think in the pin and pull aspect, the pull usually gets more shine than the pin, but they're equally important. And here the pin is really on display. Dawson Knox almost chucks 98 into the opposite B gap. Like it's just nuts. He almost chucks him across the field. Gilliam strong at the point of attack, and credit to Tommy Doyle. I really like getting Doyle more into these sets as a young lineman. I think a lot of us thought that this would be Spencer Brown's role this year.
Yeah, they used him as like an extra tight end in this game, right?
Exactly, which is what we started to see. We saw from Bates several weeks before he was thrust into the starting lineup, and preseason what we thought we'd see from Spencer Brown as a nice way to kind of get their feet wet. But with what's going on the offensive line, things have changed. Now Doyle is that sixth lineman. Here he's one of the legit five because of the throw to Dawkins to play before. But it's nice to just allow him to get a nice positive rep,
Game
build
reps,
some confidence and game reps. Yep, see some live action, live speed. And I love Mitch Morse pulling, but and I like the confidence building for Doyle, but they really don't have to do much here because the pins are so good. Combined with the jet action, you got guys flowing to the other side of the field with Isaiah McKenzie, and Josh literally walks in untouched. Look at number 20 flies with McKenzie. 34, Darren Hall. He starts to kick inside off of McKenzie's motion, and then he's already caught and he's done for. Once that happens, Sean Williams moves inside. He's done. He follows Dawson, knocks a little bit, doesn't even see Gilliam coming to pin him. It's a really nice play design and nice execution, and all because of the pin and pull action, the jet action along with the pin and pull, and then taking advantage of your mobile quarterback.
Yeah, so we're going to fast forward to later in this quarter. Still in the first quarter, 3rd and 10 situation here, 2:15 on the clock. Ball is on the 18-yard line. And this is that ridiculous boundary catch from Gabriel Davis to the top of the screen. But another play where our boy Mitch Morse really extends this play for Josh Allen with another pop set, as you'll see right here, because on the snap, you're going to see. And this was one of those plays where they used a hard count, and the Falcons really showed their hand. The Bills could see that they were bringing this slot pressure off the edge here. And I remember during the game, I said, Eric Wood, after this play happened, I go, Eric, you got to break down and let us know about Mitch Morse popping out here and picking up that slot rusher. And he said, what was interesting about this play was the fact that, the Bills uncovered this pressure, this rush coming, this 4-man simulated pressure, creeper pressure, but they didn't slide protection. And again, I think that comes back to keeping things simple for Dawkins and Ryan Bates at left guard here. Hey, worry about your guy inside, set the depth of the pocket. We have a guy in Mitch Morse that can come out here on a pop set, pick up that rusher, and really, solidify that pocket for Josh Allen. You see him slide just a little bit to the left. And then again, the ridiculous boundary catch from Gabriel Davis. Just unreal.
Unreal catch. Really good throw from Josh, starting to fade away again like last week. But you mentioned something that I think is tremendously important, and I love. I love when quarterbacks and offenses use different counts, whether it's hard counts or they go with a quick count and change things up. Anything and everything you can do to keep a defense off kilter and off balance, I love. And
I'll add real quick to Ant, like when they uncovered that rush coming from the slot, there was 5 seconds left on the clock. So even if they had, they uncovered it, I don't think they had enough time to really change a protection either way. But I think they would have stayed in this anyways, because again, this was a game plan thing. When you have a pop set from a center 4 times in the game, that was planned. I'm sorry. You don't just do that on a whim.
No, that's something that's worked into the game plan. They're prepped for that. And the first pop set that we showed, Mitch fit himself in between Bates and Dawkins. This time, he works himself all the way outside Deion Dawkins, picks up that rusher coming from the slot, and is basically functioning as a left tackle. Like, again, think about that athleticism for a center. Look at him climb and pass 2 gaps to then pick up the slot corner who's blitzing, who is faster than him, smaller than him, more athletic than him. Mitch has to get out there and then set his feet, get in proper position. And again, we're highlighting Morse, but good job enough by Bates on Jarrett once again. Good job by Dawkins funneling Fowler inside and making it easy for Josh to make this read and be like, okay, the pressure's all been funneled inside. Let me slide to the left where I have protection with Mitch Morse. Allen makes a throw. And it seems at least every other week at this point, Gabriel Davis is making some catch that shouldn't be made. This catch is just so stupid. It's so that's the thing too I want to mention. I know somebody commented on the YouTube videos when we say things like stupid and dumb, we're meaning them in a slang way because they're so good. Like, man, that
like
throw
silly, stupid, bonkers, like
sick, good,
it's
all that
compliment.
Kind of stuff. It's 1,000%.
I forgot about that. Yeah,
and so I said it now, and I was like, hold on, let me clarify. I didn't know that he made the catch at first.
Yeah,
and they showed that footage. His ability to just catch it on the bobble and catch it the first time. off the bobble with his right foot still down and then toe tap the left. Like Josh again puts this into a spot where only his guy is going to get it. He keeps it away from the zone defender underneath and from the zone defender up top. And while he's getting pressured a little bit inside, falling away. So good placement by Josh and ridiculous catch by Gabriel Davis. Really fun.
Yeah, so let's put a cap on this as well. First quarter, third and fourth situation. Now, 39 seconds left in the quarter, and this is Josh Allen's second rushing touchdown on the day. Again, pin and pull, QB sweep, and this was really, you hear a commentator talk about student body right, like this is old school, Lombardi type stuff where like you get everybody on the perimeter. Again, look at that tight bunch formation. You saw Knox and Gilliam on the last play, so a little different personnel grouping. Here you see two running backs. So you have Singletary to the right of Josh. You have Moss as one of the bunch players, Knox, and then McKenzie out wide. And hey, McKenzie is a good player, but I mean, you're not thinking a run is coming here with him in there. But you see at the point of attack, they have, one of the better players in Deion Jones right there on the edge. And again, they get the edge here with some really nice down blocks at the point of attack from Knox and McKenzie. And then that allows guys like Spencer Brown, Mitch Morse, Singletary as that extra blocker is picked up, and they walk in on the right side of the formation here for a touchdown for Josh Allen. Just, again, another beautiful call and design from Brian Dable, and then just money execution from the Bills offense.
Mark Sanchez had some good verbiage on this play when he said a convoy led Josh Allen into the end zone. That was nice to hear, seeing as how Sanchez was largely negative on the day about everything for the Buffalo Bills. But he was spot on with this one. You get Spencer Brown coming out, being able to fit up on Darren Hall. You've got Zach Moss leading out in front on A.J. Terrell. Singletary comes through as any potential cleanup for leakage. Mitch Morse is coming through again for any potential leakage, gets a hat on a hat. And Josh just coast in. This is, again, a nice, simple execution, good alignment. And you also mentioned that piece from McKenzie. I think that one's great as well. Like, teams aren't going to sit there and think like, okay, this little receiver is going to come and set the edge on here. And he does a good enough job to hinder Deion Jones. And when you couple that with how Dawson Knox just completely sealed his man off, like Dawson Knox blows up this edge rusher, boom, gets underneath him, fits him up, and drives him inside. Like, this is a nice technically sound block. And then look at, boom, awesome highlight there from you, Eric. Look how he seals off, right, that edge. So now when Allen turns that corner, when Morse turns that corner, Brown, whoever, they don't have to worry about any leakage coming through from that area and spilling over and affecting this play. They can worry about continuing to get upfield, getting a hat on a hat, and escorting Josh clean into the end zone.
Yeah, it was another beautiful call. Obviously, the Bills go up a couple touchdowns there with two touchdowns from Josh Allen on the ground. And so we're going to go, I believe this is actually in the second quarter, not the first quarter there. So 3rd and 7 situation, 9:20 on the clock. It is a short pass to Diggs for 13 yards. And Bills are in empty, so they have 3 receivers to the left of the formation and then 2 to the top of the screen. And another play where, again, Josh maybe wasn't his best in rhythm, but on this play, he extends it and is able to find Diggs for a first down right here in the zone, in the window and void to the top of the screen. But just another play where, yes, Allen wasn't in rhythm, but he had his boys picking up guys to give him extra time in the pocket or give him extra time to extend the play. And we have to highlight Mr. Mitch Morse again, executing that pop set. Again, the Falcons bring 3 from the right side here. So they're bringing 3 from over here. And it's amazing because Morse has a guy mugging the A gap. He has a Luakan sitting right in his A gap. So he has to check him first, right? As he pops out and you see these other rushers kind of spike inside here. Mitch Morse, again, head on a swivel. His peripheral is on point in this game. Look at him slide and pick up, the rusher right there, Deion Jones, and ride him wide of Josh Allen's spot as Josh is scanning left to right. I think he wants to go to Beasley on this play, but it kind of it took a little too long with the pressure that Josh felt with this 4-man rush. So he gets out that front door. You see Diggs slide to that void, and boom, first down.
So many things to highlight on this play. And I want to start with it from the Atlanta side, like you mentioned. Like the whole design of this with having these 6 guys given that pressure look up front is designed to confuse the offensive line. So they're hoping here, Atlanta is, that Morse is held here long enough on a Luakon because he has to honor a Luakon being in that front side A gap, that he'll honor that long enough that Deion Jones can come free on
Right.
that outside edge. And Morse blows that whole thing up by checking a Luakon, and then, as you said, head on a swivel, pops out again, gets a piece of Jones. Really good job by Josh Allen feeling that pressure, sliding and sliding away. This is something I wanted to mention too. Someone put out a tweet on Saturday that Josh Allen is too skittish in the pocket and puts his eyes down at the first sign of pressure, which this is clearly the opposite of that of what we've seen. He sees the pressure and Josh escapes here with his eyes downfield with the intention to run to then create in the pass, which is what he does. So he escapes. He keeps his eyes up when he feels that pressure, and that allows him to make this throw to Stephon Diggs here. And that's something that Allen has done all year. Josh Allen, after this Atlanta game, he's been pressured 235 times. That is the most in the entire NFL amongst all quarterbacks. But out of quarterbacks with at least 30 dropbacks this year, there's 45 QBs, right? Josh Allen's pressure to sack percentage is 11.1%. That is the third lowest amongst all QBs with at least 30 dropbacks. So he's been pressured the most, and he's been sacked basically the third least out of the conversion of those pressures to sacks. And this is an example of it. His manipulation in the pocket, his elusiveness, and his willingness to keep his eyes upfield as he escapes and he scrambles to make plays with his arm. This was a really nice, encouraging piece. And if you can you go to the sideline view of this? There's one more thing I wanted to mention. I like how physical Stephon Diggs is at the top of this route, where he just chucks his man to get open. He hops a little bit, boom, chucks him off. That nice little physicality piece, I think it's something that goes kind of unnoticed in this play, but it's a nice way for Diggs to get open initially, but Josh can't find him because he's scrambling, and then Diggs does what he does all the time, finds himself a soft spot during the scramble, gets square, shows his numbers, catch.
Yeah, it was, I mean, that physicality piece is going to be something as we go on in this film and we kind of pivot to that run game and the offensive line. It's going to be something that you're going to hear us talk about a little more. So in this game, as we said, Josh was struggling. You know, they went to more of a run game, and the Bills converted 19 first downs rushing the ball and 8 passing. So it was obvious, like, yeah, you know, the running game was working. And I know some of the scrambles from Josh Allen kind of plays into rushing, but nonetheless, 19 rushing first downs in this game. 8 were from Josh Allen, 7 from Singletary. This is an explosive play from Devin Singletary, and just one I love because it's in the second quarter, again, in that quarter where things started to shift for the offense, like, hey, we can't pass the ball. We're going to start running the ball a little more, and Singletary picks up 20 yards on this play, and it's really kind of like a trap run up the middle, probably a play that it's supposed to hit like right up in here. But as a former running back, I love this play from Singletary because he's reading the alignment here. So as you can see, Josh Allen's in a shotgun. And so, of course, defenses have to respect the zone read, right? So, like, they have to have a plan. And on this play, Singletary sees prior to the snap that Oluokun, number 54, is kind of becoming the dive guy. Normally, what you're going to do is you're going to have this guy crash on the inside run, and then this is your player for the quarterback on a scrape exchange. Well, on this play, Singletary reads the alignment of Oluokun here and realizes post-snap that, hold on, he's shooting the gap here. So now he is the dive player responsible for Singletary. And then this guy's going to box and try to contain Josh Allen if he were to keep it on his own read. Well, not only does Singletary read this, but more importantly, Dawkins reads this, and he just swallows him up right there. And instead of hitting the trap up in here, that's probably not going to hit too well because here's a trapper, Bates on the defensive tackle, but we have Mr. Deion Jones sitting right in that gap. So that trap run, that little gap type run up the middle is not going to work. And you see Singletary, and he did this all game. I mean, one cut, boom, up the field. And now all he has to do is break this little arm tackle, which, again, this guy, there's so much space between the edge rusher and Devin Singletary because of the scheme and their approach to how to stop the zone read here. He breaks that tackle, and he's into the secondary for a 20-yard gain.
Yeah, really nice to see Singletary show that vision on this one. And you highlighted it perfect where this run is probably designed to go. And Singletary just sees it. Look at him see it and just sticks his foot in the ground, gets north and south, gets vertical, runs physically and hard like he has these past several weeks, easily breaks an arm tackle, and just picks up a really big run. And it's a nice play from Dawkins, like you mentioned as well, just being like, all right, cool. Let me just completely wash Aluakon inside. We get a nice hole for Singletary off the edge, and it's good to see him have that vision, which we weren't seeing in the beginning of the year from him. It's a reason fans were clamoring for, okay, let's see some more Matt Breida, or let's see some more Moss, or people wanted to see Antonio Williams. And now we're starting to see Singletary display multiple traits and abilities in back-to-back games.
He's in a
showing
groove,
potential, 1,000%. Like, we're starting to see some true like RB1 traits coming from him, and the vision is really nice. He shows enough burst, but his ability to just have that vision, stick the foot in the ground, and get upfield right away to the point that that defensive end can't crash down, and all he can get is an arm on him, is a credit to Singletary recognizing where the new hole is and how to get to it.
Yeah, and so we move forward in the second quarter here, a 2nd and 4 situation. Ball on the 18-yard line of Atlanta, 5:45 on the clock. And this is just a 6-yard gain. They moved the chains on this play, but we talked about the evolution of not just a team, not just the offense, but by adding a guy like Ryan Bates here and what difference he makes on a play like this. You're going to see him on Grady Jarrett, who's just aligned outside of him in a 3 technique here. And he executes a very nice reach block and then uses his feet to kind of cover him up. It's not perfect, but he occupies him enough. And that allows Deion Dawkins to get out in space. And you saw me tweet this. He eliminates number 34 right there.
Train coming.
Train's coming. It puts him right out of bounds there. I mean, he's like a sumo wrestler throwing a guy outside the ring there. But it allows, again, it gets the Bills the edge. And normally on this crack toss type run here from the I formation, normally, like, if you don't have an athletic offensive lineman at guard, normally you're going to have to down block here, and then you're going to try to get this guy out in space, which is a lot more difficult because he's got to cover more ground. He's a guard, but having an athletic guard like this, like Bates in the lineup here, he is able to, again, cover him up. The quickness off the snap allows Dawkins, the uncovered offensive lineman, to get out in space to clear that edge. And the Bills get 6 yards on this run on a simple little pitch out.
This is not an easy block for Ryan Bates just because of the alignment of Grady Jarrett and the assignment that Bates has on this play, but then added into the fact that it is Grady Jarrett, who is a athletic, mobile, strong defensive tackle. I know he's not having a great year from a raw statistical perspective, but he's still a very good player. I love how Bates moves his feet. And this is key too, right? Even when Bates starts to potentially lose a little bit here, he keeps moving his feet. He doesn't draw a holding penalty here. He doesn't get lazy. He doesn't get sloppy. He keeps moving his feet and does just enough to continue to occupy Jarrett and get in his way. And then everything else is nice. We get a beautiful block by Dawkins because, defensive backs can't cut anyone in the open field anymore. This is just super unfair. And we get another guy who you mentioned earlier, Reggie Gilliam, taking advantage of the physicality and athleticism of Reggie Gilliam, right? You got a fullback who moves like a running back, a traditional running back. Let's use some of that athleticism. Let's use some of that power, letting him lead this play out and getting out in front of space, or getting out in space in front of Singletary is nice. And also a little shout out to Jay Kumaro there, using his size and cracking down a little bit to help on the edge.
Yeah, it was a nice little, again, 6-yard gain, nothing crazy, but it just shows you the evolution of not just the offense, but how they are able to do some small little things up front, whether it's the pop sets and things like that, or just, again, that little crack toss, a little pitch out by inserting Bates into the lineup. It's opened up some athleticism for the offensive line, for Bobby Johnson and Brian Dable to do some different things that maybe they hadn't shown on film for a majority of the year. So unfortunately, this drive ended in an interception. Second quarter, 3rd and 8 call here, ball on the 10-yard line, 3:31 on the clock. And this is that pass that was intercepted. Really a bad decision, I would say, from Josh Allen here. Something he didn't need to do. Like, I don't like this play call. I don't like it versus this coverage. Really, the only one that the only player that really comes open is Beasley to the top of the screen and kind of like a third phase type route, really, slow developing route. But I don't even know if he's going to get it there. But either way, Josh escapes to the right side of the field. He breaks several tackles, and right there, he breaks that tackle. And at this point, I mean, he's got to realize on 3rd and long here and Aluakon closing in, like the play is dead. There's really nothing there. It says the NFL deemed this, it was intended for Cole Beasley coming back to the middle here. Some people think it was for Diggs. In the end, it doesn't matter. I think the big discourse on this play was him throwing back towards the middle of the field and creating an interception. He did it twice in this game, and one of them was also dropped in the end zone. The interception was dropped from a Falcons player as Allen tried hitting Diggs. But to me, the big issue here is not necessarily Josh throwing back to the middle of the field, because we've actually seen him execute that with success more times than not. So people that don't watch a lot of Josh Allen film, like they're like, oh, this is a big no-no. This is a big no-no. You can't throw rolling right back to the middle of the field. Like, yes, relatively speaking, across the league, that's true. But for like 5 different quarterbacks, Aaron Rodgers, the Mahomes, Josh Allen's of the world, like more times than not, those quarterbacks with their arm strength are able to get away with plays like this. But I will say,
Allen did it. He did it twice last week for 2 completions, one to Kumaro and one to Manny Sands, just in that game alone.
Does it all the time, and again has more success. But I mean, you can't argue that, on this play specifically, it didn't work out, and it was not a smart call. Being up on the scoreboard and driving and taking points off the board, essentially, just not a good play overall.
No, this is one of those, the proverbial like live to fight another day type of thing, and
good with the bad,
yeah, and it's a shame because he shows such great escapability initially. He gets out of the pocket when he starts to sense pressure and the play breaking down, and he gets so. Oh yeah, you highlighted right there. There's Diggs falling down and getting a face full of snow as he falls down. I think he was running a corner route in the end zone. He falls down, and Allen's able to evade the defensive tackle, and then he's got Fowler bearing down on him, an edge player, and he shakes him too. And this is one. Okay, you know what? Just eat it and throw it out of bounds or run forward, take some yards. But instead he throws it. And this is also too, like, this is a mistake on Allen's part, but this is good activity from the Falcons defense. They're running this cover 1 coverage here. And Harmon, the safety number 21, is the one who picks it off. He's in that single high safety look. But when Allen starts to roll, he rolls with him. He starts flowing to the free side of the field, following his eyes. And then Aluakon, 54, who we continue to mention, who is a solid player for this Atlanta team. He's almost kind of like in that robber role. He just sits down in the middle of the field. You highlighted him right there off the snap, and is just in like a middle zone by himself, but also spying Josh. And he does a really good job of taking a good angle to Allen. And if you notice, he doesn't completely close him down because he knows he's got the sideline there as support. So he takes a good angle, squares up Allen, and gets perfectly in that throwing lane and then makes an athletic play. So on the one hand, this is a play that this is an error on Josh's part. He should not be making this throw. But also, again, tip your hat to Atlanta. They had a good call on that play, and they had 2 guys who executed and made a play, and they got a takeaway.
Yeah, and this is another takeaway, another one of interceptions, 2-by-2 set. Still in the second quarter, 1st and 10 situation. Ball is on the 37-yard line, 1:15 on the clock here. And this is that pass that was intended up the seam for Cole Beasley, intercepted by Terrell there at the 37-yard line. It's just a mirror Haas concept. You have 2 seam routes inside in the slots, and then you have just curl or stop routes by the outside receivers here. And this play, obviously, there was a lot of talk about Beasley being contacted there down the seam, and rightfully so. But in the end, I don't like Josh throwing this seam route versus, a cover 3 type look. You see the Falcons drop into a cover 3 look, which, hey, don't get me wrong. That's where the weakness is in cover 3. You see Josh even use his eyes to look to the bottom of the screen and knocks. And then that usually holds the safety, and you can sneak Beasley down the seam. Don't get me wrong. That process is on point. But at this point in the game, when you've had turnovers like this, and we know that this isn't Josh Allen's best throw. Seam shots to smaller receivers have given Josh Allen struggles for years now. He can make these throws to Dawson Knox, the Gabriel Davises down the seam, but when you have a small guy like Beasley working down the seam after contact, I don't like this throw, and I also don't like the pace on it, the touch on it, and it sails over the top of the smaller receiver's head. Again, you can argue the contact there, but in the end, I didn't like the decision by Josh Allen throwing down the seam to Beasley.
Agreed. I did not like the decision, and I posted this play on Twitter earlier this morning because I saw a lot of people were blaming Cole Beasley on this and saying that he quit on the route, and that's the reason this was intercepted. And
That's crazy.
again, yeah, it is crazy. I disagree with it completely. And again, I also want to put the bigger picture. Darren Hall, number 34. I want to credit him a little bit. Like, should it have been a penalty or illegal contact, pass interference, what have you? Perhaps. I like the no call because I think defenders are severely disadvantaged in today's NFL, but Hall does a good job, and you see him right there in the top right of the screen. He reroutes Beasley, but he does it. It is textbook. He reroutes him as he's continuing his drop, going to Gabriel Davis to sink underneath him. So it doesn't look like an outright mugging. It looks like a defender fighting for space and getting to his zone. Now, could it have been called? Yes. Have we seen calls like these been made in the NFL this year? Yes. But I like the no call. I think it's a good job by Darren Hall. And to defend Beasley here, right when Josh is cocking his arm back to make this throw and releases it, that's when, so Allen is throwing the ball right there, and look at Hall's positioning. Hall is making contact with Beasley right now. So Beasley gets rerouted as Josh Allen is pulling the trigger here, which disrupts this throw even more because Josh thinks that Beasley is going to get to a spot that he no longer can get to because of the reroute by Darren Hall. So I don't like the decision by Josh, to your point, but also, again, I tip my hat to Darren Hall for making a play with a really good timing of a reroute, disrupts this whole thing. And then again, the one person we haven't talked about at all, what a great friggin' catch by AJ Terrell. Dive in, gets his arms under the ball on a snowy day. So there's some error on the Bills' part from this, especially with Josh Allen. But again, solid execution by another Falcons defender, which leads to a play.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, guys. We got to go into the third interception here. We're in the third quarter.
Just back to back to back.
They're 3rd and 7. Yeah, we're gonna get the ugly out of the way because then we're gonna break down some good film, some rushing games. So 3rd and 7 situation, ball on the 32-yard line, 14 on the clock, and again, second half, Bills are coming out of the half. They get the ball, and this one's intercepted, but. You see a dagger concept, so trip set to the bottom of the screen. You have the deep in-breaking route by Diggs, or option route by Beasley in the slot. You have the clearing route by Gabriel Davis, and the Falcons basically rush 3. They drop one out as a rat spy defender underneath, and that's the guy that really gets a piece of the ball. And we talked about Jamie Collins last week of the Patriots and how the Patriots kind of did something similar when Josh was able to move this guy out of the passing lane here. Well, he tries doing it here, and he doesn't bite. This guy does not bite. You see right there, you see Josh kind of look right here to the optioner and try to get this guy to move out because he wants to, obviously, on 3rd and long, he wants to hit that deep in-breaking route right here to Diggs. He's not able to. That guy stays in the passing lane, and it's deflected, and it goes right to the Aluakon. Again,
right to him.
Johnny on the spot, man. He's just always in the right spot. And even look at this. When Josh goes to throw this, even if that defender doesn't get a piece of it, I don't know if this play is completed.
Yes, exactly.
Let's be honest here. I don't know because Aluakon is in that passing lane. He played both players, Beasley and Diggs, on the in-breaking route really well on this play.
Really good job from Aluakon leveraging space here in his coverage after he flies out. He's around the line of scrimmage at the snap and just flies out, gets to his depth, while keeping his head on a swivel, and is able to leverage that space between Beasley and Diggs. We'll see him here again. Aluakon's in a pressure look pre-snap, and then as soon as the snap happens, flies out, takes a good angle, and again, it's a really good job. You see number 3 there, not committing too much, not getting moved. He stays square to Josh Allen, keeps his head up, and he's on the balls of his feet, ready and waiting to get his hands up and make a play on here. I think it's similar to what, you mentioned what New England did last week. They tried to do some of those muddled rushes and those contained rushes, and it's a really nice job here of not committing by Atlanta and just trying to keep Josh in there, getting your hands up, and then Aluakon. Sometimes when you're just playing well, you get rewarded by being in the right place at the right time, and this ball just falls in. The fact that it's deflected and still falls in perfectly into the nook of Aluakan's arm is just like the football gods giving him some good karma for being a good football player, especially on a team that's having a rough year. But yeah, again, not a great decision from Josh. I love that you mentioned the potential completion aspect, because a lot of people were saying, man, if that doesn't get deflected, that's an easy catch. I don't know if that's necessarily a completion the way Atlanta was rallying on that spot. So again, kudos to them. They make a good play, and that's another reason. So again, we have that third interception. Now we start to see as the Bills that was the first drive of the second half. Now we're coming to the second drive of the second half, and the Bills have a different approach and a different mindset as they start to shift and pivot a little bit to another aspect of their offense.
Yeah, Brian Dable said, you know what? We realized Josh was, basically, and not so many words, Josh was struggling, and, we had some turnovers. So we're like, okay, we need to scale it back and try to look for other ways to move the ball. And this is when it really began to, kick into high gear. Third quarter, 2nd and 5 situation, ball on the Bills 25-yard line, 12 minutes on the clock. And this is an explosive run from Singletary, 20 yards on a pin and pull run. So you're getting down blocks from Dawkins and Knox in space on Deion Jones. And then you're getting that play from Bates out in space, Morse out in space, a wide perimeter run. I want you to keep an eye on that. Look at the formation, shotgun formation, Knox in line to the left side of the formation. Keep that in mind, because the Bills had success on these pin and pull runs, on those QB sweeps and QB pin and pulls. It opened up plays up the middle as the game progressed. So here is the wide perimeter run here. And again, good work from Dawson Knox specifically, but watch Grady Jarrett sees it coming him out. Look at the down block from Dawkins, but look at Jarrett counter it and chop down the hands. And it almost blows this play up, but Singletary manipulates his track here, dives right in there and then bounces and accelerates out wide. Like it's so subtle. And as a former running back, like most people won't realize this, but that little dart inside right there, and then the acceleration and manipulation of stride to kick out wide, got him on the perimeter. And then again, you get Morris on the perimeter. You get the kick out block from Bates right there on the edge player. And now you have the alley. And then look at Dawson Knox down the field on Deion Jones, one of the most athletic linebackers in the NFL. Morris getting a piece of Aluakan. And then, then Singletary bringing the heat here. Boom, just runs right through Sean Williams in the alley there and is able to pick up 20 yards on this play. Again, evolution of not just the offense, but a guy like Devin Singletary, shiftiness. I talked about the track there, shiftiness in this nasty weather on this really ugly turf, with snow on the ground, hard turf, I mean, it was almost Shady-esque how well he was able to cut in this type of weather. And then to bring the lumber like that, that was a lot of people were saying that was a turning point. And I would kind of agree. Like, this is not Singletary's game. He's got contact balance, but he usually doesn't run guys over like this.
No, he's got contact balance, but he's not a run through guys type of. Oh, Sean Williams almost goes limp the way he gets like rocked. You can see the hit reverberate through Sean Williams's entire body, and then he just goes down. That's such a beautiful finish, a nice exclamation point, and something that we saw in the preseason from Devin Singletary, not running through people, but finishing his runs, getting two hands on the ball, lowering his shoulder and falling forward for 2-3 yards on every run. This was a really quality run from him. I love how you highlighted his move in the backfield. Another thing we saw early in the season from him in the preseason was that lateral agility from him. And he shows it on this play just in a different direction, because when he gets the ball, he's horizontal to the sideline. And will parallel to it, but he's horizontal in terms of his placement on the field. So he shows that lateral agility by bouncing backwards. If you're thinking of direction towards the line of scrimmage, boom, here's
it from this angle.
Boom,
look at that.
nice.
See, you can see it better from there. He just that plant on the right foot allows him to get out and around Jarrett there. Just beautiful, man.
And he doesn't lose too much depth or pace to the point where he can't recover from getting around Jarrett and they can attack him in the backfield and he only gains like 2 or 3 yards. It's a nice, fluid, explosive play to get around Grady Jarrett. You got Bates burying his man on the outside so that Devin can get upfield. And then, here's another beautiful example. Let's keep an eye on Dawson Knox. Look how he gets right into Deion Jones and just drives him back and takes him for a little ride. Like, there you go. Highlight him right there. Jones is trying to get off. He's trying to spin.
Yeah.
He can't gain his footing. Knox is continuing with that physicality and with his good hand technique. And then Devin finishes it off. It's, again, we're talking about evolution. It's the evolution, like you said, of Devin Singletary and his game, of the style of run for the offense, of Dawson Knox and his blocking ability. It's all these pieces that are starting to click and starting to connect. And this was a talking point as well. Like, yes, you mentioned it. It's against the Atlanta Falcons, not the most stout of defenses. But the way the Bills were executing earlier in this year, it didn't matter what quality of defense they were playing. They were not executing in the run game and in this way with these individual players earlier in the year. So the fact that they're clicking and winning it all is a positive thing, along with being able to finally hang their hat on something in the offense other than Josh Allen.
Yeah, and I mean, this isn't a play that was other than Josh Allen. There's a play like, hey, as we talked about, like on 3rd and 3, a short yardage formation, you're going to see the Bills run a mesh concept with Beasley and Diggs over the middle, crossing routes versus man coverage. And, the Falcons did a really good job here. You're going to see them do like what the the Titans did several weeks ago. And even last year, is they drop out 2 of their edge players. So you're going to see 2 guys pop out underneath here and really kind of take away and get a piece of really the contact, that physicality you talk about. Look at the contact that those 2 guys versus man coverage. This is where Josh wants to go. Those guys get contacted, and that's taken away from him. And Josh Allen really only has one option. And that's Dawson Knox on this crossing route. But again, you have this guy, kind of dropping out underneath, and it just, and he's reading Josh Allen there. But I want to get to the end zone angle because really that's where the play is made. The big uglies up front really do a great job of picking up really what ended up being a 5-man diamond front. If you listen to the broadcast angle, you're going to hear them call diamond front. It's just a 5-man front. Everyone's covered. Usually the offensive line calls a 5-0 blocking or a Hawaii. You see a hang loose sign from the offensive line a lot of times. And a lot of times they're just going to run man-on-man blocking here like that. Well, on this play, as I said, the Falcons drop guys out, so they disguise it well. But I want you to watch what these defensive linemen try doing. So they try running a little game with Grady Jarrett. He's going to spike right here. And then you're going to see someone coming up over the top. And again, the offensive line had a really good game, and they've put 2 good games together. Again, you can argue and debate the competition and how the defensive lines were scheming against the Bills offensive line, but watch what the Bills do on this play. So you got the spiker and Jarrett, and a lot of people don't realize that pass protection is not passive. And when you see Jarrett, number 97, spike inside right there, look at Darrell Williams. That is an aggressive, violent pass to his teammates there, Mitch Morse and guys on the left side line there. Jarrett goes flying. All right, completely takes out his teammate there. So those 2 guys are down. So here comes 95. He's looping over the top. And again, violent pass. Now you're picking up the looper in number 95. Williams engages. And guess who's sitting there looking for work?
There
Mr.
it is. I love that
Spencer
phrase. Looking
Brown.
for work.
Here it comes. He drops the boom. And now Josh has the edge. So yes, the scheme was shut down. The play concept, the route concept was shut down. Well, now Josh has an edge right there. Now he can become that dual threat right here. And I'm just going to highlight real quick. Look at the athleticism. It really looks easy from Spencer Brown here. But like just how he shifts right there, like that's so fluid. Like, okay, Josh is running it. Josh becomes the runner. You see number 6 kind of get eaten up. Yeah,
Dante Fowler gets put in a spin cycle.
And then boom, first down, Buffalo. You see Josh, cover the ball up. I mean, I just love everything about this play because again, it's a pass, and there's pass protection, but there's violence, there's physicality. It's something that we've talked about the last couple of weeks that we're starting to see, not just in the run game, but in the pass game.
Yeah, you hit everything structurally on this play. I got nothing to add. I just want to elaborate on that physicality piece. Brandon Staley mentioned it, the coach of the Chargers, about the importance of establishing physicality in your offense and how it helps the offense and how it helps the quarterback. And it's ironic that we saw in a game where the Bills started to establish some physicality in the running game, how that physicality translated to pass protection. And you hit it like
It was
there's
like
just
infectious, right? It was
yeah,
like it
1,000%.
just was showing up everywhere.
You get that mindset where when things start to turn and you dial it up a little bit from a physical perspective, you don't just turn it off. It's not like, oh, okay, it's a run play, like let's get a little physical. No, when you're physical, like you're physical. It doesn't matter what the play call is, run, pass, zone run, gap run. If you're physical, you're physical. And the Bills have changed a little bit. Again, it's the theme of this episode we're trying to go with here, right? The evolution of this offense. We have not seen this physicality from this team. Look at I don't want to use it in like because car crashes are bad things, but it's like a car crash up front. It's just chaos. The Bills are chucking defenders left and right, bodying guys into the ground. Spencer Brown, that's one of my favorite phrases in all of football. You see it with good prospects in college all the time. Looking for work. Go find something to do. Spencer Brown finds it twice. Oh, I don't got anything to do. Well, here's this looper. Boom. Take a seat. Let me get my head on a swivel. Oh, Josh is starting to scramble a little bit. Let me peek over my other shoulder to see what angle he's taken. Oh, he's cutting inside of me. Okay, let me continue to get up front. Poor Dante Fowler can't get his feet right in the snow. He gets put in the spin cycle a little bit while he's trying to drop into coverage. So many things are working on this play, and it's all the evolution of the offense from a mentality standpoint and an execution and schemability standpoint up front. So it's just a small, Josh Allen scramble, but the pieces are indicative of a larger picture, and that's the big thing.
Yeah, and so you heard me talk about a couple plays ago how, after some of those pin and pull runs from Singletary and Josh Allen, like the Falcons had to do something schematically, structurally on the defense to kind of stop that. So you can see now they've dedicated several guys to the right side of the Bills formation here as the Bills are in shotgun. And this is in the third quarter, 6:02 on the clock. This is that 6-yard touchdown, really capping off a physical drive, as you just saw in that last play, with a physical run from Devin Singletary. And as I said, now look at the interior gaps and how they are pretty much unoccupied. But I also want you to focus in on Mitch Morse getting over and helping Darrell Williams to seal off their best player in Grady Jarrett. But more importantly, the read and execution by Devin Singletary, reading Ryan Bates here. So Ryan Bates, Deion Dawkins are working on a combination block to the second level to Aluakon number 54. But I want you to watch as that number 94, goes back door here, and now he's able to get reach from Deion Dawkins. But more importantly, Bates has to process that. First of all, okay, he's spiking out wide. I can climb immediately to the second level. But the angle, the athleticism, but more importantly, the body language. Look at the body language that Ryan Bates gives Devin Singletary. He tells him, hey, I'm going to go on the inside. I'm getting my helmet on the inside to the left of Aluakon here. It's up to you to take the shortest distance to the goal line, to the end zone. And that little body language for a running back, it's almost like Josh Allen reading Cole Beasley and Stephon Diggs when they're coming out of breaks. Like that little body language from Ryan Bates here makes all the difference to this run here, because Deion Jones, you see 45, again, really quick, athletic guy. He comes in, doesn't go to wrap up Devin Singletary there, but that body language and straightest line to the end zone from Ryan Bates for Devin Singletary made all the difference on this physical run up the middle against the Falcons.
As running backs, you always have to do that drill, right? Where you're running at the dummy and coach moves it one way or the other, and then you're supposed to cut the opposite way. It teaches you that like read and reaction ability. And this is like kind of what it's designed to do, but you don't have to do that here because Ryan Bates makes a running back friendly block. I love that you mentioned it. He's basically like one of those dudes on the tarmac at the airport wearing the orange vest and the flasher saying, just come this way, cut right off my butt. Here's where the hole is. Here's where the gap is. Singletary just has to be patient. He doesn't even need to set up the block that much because Bates's body language, like you said, clues him in. And then Aluakon, his shoulder is in the wrong gap. Well, I mean, it's going to be in the wrong gap based on where Singletary is going to cut.
He goes,
so he's exactly. So he's looking inside because he's kind of damned if he does, damned if he doesn't. Singletary is easily able to read what Bates is doing up front. And then again, it's the finish. He gets vertical, puts his foot in the ground, lowers his shoulder, two hands on the ball, and he bounces off the contact from Deion Jones. And Deion Jones 1,000% needs to wrap up. This is a stupid tackle, stupid in a bad way, not stupid in a cool way. Stupid tackle around the goal line where if someone falls forward, they can fall into the end zone, which is exactly what happens here. This is a mental lapse from Deion Jones. He's got to wrap up, but Singletary gets physical north and south, puts his shoulder down. And also, you mentioned at the beginning of that, how many dudes were shaded to the outside for Atlanta and how many jumped outside at the snap thinking, okay, here comes another pin and pull. And the Bills use that to their advantage and they hit him inside and gash him quick for a touchdown.
Yeah, and here's another physical run from the Bills, another pin and pull. We're in the third quarter, 2nd and 10 situation, 2:11 on the clock. This is a run by Zach Moss for 11 yards off the left side of the screen. Again, watch the down blocks at the point of attack, watch Dawson Knox in space, and you see Mitch Morse able to get outside. Much better job right here from Deion Dawkins on the edge player, number 91, as he tries to skate over the top of this. Like, watch this closely. So you get the down block from Dawkins right here, right? And that guy does a great job of retracing. They're taught to retrace over the top, kind of push that play out wide as much as you can, make it bubble. And so you see him try to get an arm over right there, but watch the finish by Deion Dawkins right there. So this is the guy. Watch Deion Dawkins finish him. And this was obviously a theme in the game, physicality, but Deion Dawkins was throwing dudes out the club. He was like Uncle Phil throwing Jazz out of the house, like left and right. He was doing this all game. It got Zach Moss on the perimeter. I mean, Zach Moss on the perimeter, and he's able to lower that shoulder on Mr. Williams again. But he's wrapped up. But again, in this weather, in this temperature, guys don't want to make these kind of tackles, and it does take a toll on a defense.
It does. You feel all the hits more when it's cold out, and they sting a little more, and they hurt a little bit more, and it's not something that every team wants to do. And it's nice to see the Bills playing this brand of football at this time of year, because you're going to get a lot of games in the playoffs that are played in colder conditions and temperatures. And, highlighting the guy that Dawkins puts in the ground.
He's sliding, bro. He's like slip and slide on the turf. Look at this guy. Like, I
love how he tries to get over the top of Dawkins. And so Dawkins is like, oh, okay, you want to get over the top? Cool. Here you go. And just plants him. And he gets him right as that defender's trying to separate. He tries to swim over the top, and Dawkins stays underneath with leverage and just puts his hand,
uses
his momentum, gets his right hand, his inside arm right in that armpit underneath, and just plants him, uses that leverage, puts him to the ground. Look at, you mentioned it, but look how far Dawson Knox is downfield again on Deion Jones. He's not latched on like he was earlier, but he's just consistently takes him for a ride a little bit and just stays on him, stays in his way downfield. This play is like 10 yards downfield, even more. And Dawkins is riding his man downfield, using some of that athleticism and physicality that he's shown in the run after catch and receiving aspect of his game, using it in the run game. It's just, again,
Jones was disinterested at this point in the game, right?
1,000%. Yeah, he didn't want it anymore. He was done.
He didn't want any of this physicality, not just from Dawson Knox, but from all of the Bills players. Like, this type of play is not good for his skill set. He's more of a coverage guy, and he's really good sideline to sideline. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to diminish his skill set, but at this point in the game, he did not want any of this heat. He just didn't.
No, it's cold, it's snowy, they're getting physical with you, things aren't going your way, you have a bunch of turnovers, and it seems like it doesn't matter because you're down again, like you're mentally starting to fade a little bit, and then the physicality aspect, like we mentioned, it starts to wear on you, teams start to lean on you a little bit, and the Bills did it and continued with this motion with another physical 4th and 1 conversion here on this play.
Yeah, and this is a 2-yard gain, 4th and 1, as you said. And Bills ran this play in the red zone earlier in the game, and Allen handed it off to McKenzie, and McKenzie got several yards. But on this play, it's I would say that Josh is supposed to be reading number 6 here, I believe, number 6 coming off the edge. And that guy gives him a pretty obvious read right here.
He should hand it off.
But Josh is like, nope, I'm gonna take the ball right off your hip of McKenzie.
He rides that mesh point so long.
Yeah, beyond a point of no return. But he's able to, again, he wants, and this is why we love Josh. Like, sometimes it works, sometimes it didn't. Earlier in the year, it didn't work against the Jags, I believe, where he kept it. He didn't get it off the right side on the zone read. Here, same thing happens. And again, the Bills had success. And then you just see McKenzie on the right side. He's like, come on, Josh. Like,
Yeah,
because
right.
let's be honest here. Like in the first half, when the Bills ran this in the red zone, Devin Singletary did not pick up his block on Aluakon here, and he's the guy that made the tackle. But I think if McKenzie gets the ball here, I do think that there's at least a helmet on Aluakon, and you're going to get McKenzie outside. And who knows if he's able to get up into the alley here. But again, you take the good with the bad. Some of these decisions on those zone reads, on the counter bashes, they're not always going to be perfect, and they're not always going to be executed properly from Josh Allen. But this was a play that he kept it, but more importantly, he was able to convert the first down.
You know, you can win with talent and you can win with scheme. And by winning with scheme, it's, getting clever and figuring out a way to, out game the offense or the defense and take advantage of them in some aspect. And winning with talent is sometimes just like, my guy is better than your guy, or he's bigger, or he's faster, or he's stronger, and I'm just going to win that way. This is that on this play. This is my guy just being bigger and stronger, and potentially, it's hard to get in the mind of players, and potentially wanting it more than the Atlanta defenders do at this point. And yeah, like you said, it's just nice to have a guy who's the leader of this team on offense, but overall, who's just, sometimes he's a complete mismatch because of his talent and his ability. And it's just like, all right, cool. Let me take advantage of me being bigger and stronger and wanting it more. And I'm going to get this yard no matter what.
Yeah, so now we're going to get into the nitty gritty of this run game. This is where it gets fun. So this is a counter bash play. So you have a combination or a deuce block between the right guard, Dale Williams, and Spencer Brown. You're having the left guard, left tackle, Dawkins and Bates pull to the right side of the screen, but Singletary to the right of Allen is running right to left on the screen. And it's hard to tell if Josh is supposed to be reading number 55 off the edge here, or reading Aluakon as he drops out. And this is something that showed a lot in the second half, is where the Falcons were just inviting the Bills to run it. They were just dropping out their linebackers and nickel guys out into their zones, whether it was run or pass. They weren't processing and reading their keys out front. They were like just dropping out and saying, hey, go ahead and run it. We don't think you can. And the Bills obviously did show that they could. But so I can't tell you exactly who he's reading here. But in the end, what I love about this play is Spencer Brown and Darrell Williams working that combination block on Jarrett. Look at the vertical displacement that they create. Really, there's no leakage there. Look at how they're hip to hip, knee to knee. They're creating that leverage off the line of scrimmage. And then eventually, one of them has to pull off to go get that backside linebacker, Aluakon. Well, Spencer Brown does that, but he's not in the greatest of position. But this is where his athleticism and, more importantly, his length becomes a big deal. So here comes Aluakon, full bore right at Josh Allen. Deion Dawkins is, picking up his guy and just driving him down the field. Well, this is where Aluakon is coming in, and Brown is just uses his long arms to get a piece of Aluakon. I have to slow it down because you miss it. You miss it if you let it play in real time at regular speed. Look at Spencer Brown pick him up and just widen him off. Josh reads it perfectly, cuts back up inside, and gets the first down. And it was just one of those plays that was demoralizing to a defense, like running this counter bash and letting Josh convert again in the red zone with a design run.
It's nice to see execution on this from Spencer Brown on that second level on Aluakon, because I feel like sometimes people think in blocking, whether in pass protection or especially in run blocking, it's like, well, you have to be completely like formed up and you have to execute. And we have some of that on the right. Deion Dawkins is in great position on his man. Dawson Knox, who you just highlighted, is sealing off his man and in great position. And then you got Spencer Brown, who isn't in the best position, but he does just enough. That's where the complementary football piece comes in, right? He does just enough to impact Aluakon and, like you said, make him have to widen out a little bit, and it allows Josh to read that and cut off of it, and that's your complementary football, right? Brown does just enough to give Allen some space, and Allen does just enough to make that block by Spencer Brown matter and mean something. And I love counter bash. The Ravens run it all the time with Lamar Jackson. I love how you highlighted, we have another one. We had this from... Yes, similar to what Brian Burns was several weeks ago against Carolina. Look at him. He looks and he puts his head down. You can see him kind of be like, damn. Like, puts his head down, shakes it. He punches the turf. you mentioned that demoralizing piece, right? I love the physical run game because at some point, I talked about it with Nate Tice when he was on the show. There's just something different when you're a defense, when you are getting the ball run down your throat. It just takes a little more out of you from a mentality standpoint. And the Bills started to take the Atlanta Falcons' soul in the second half of this game with their physical run. And it's just good concepts, good scheme, and the mentality and the willingness of the players up front and Josh Allen. And that continues on this play. Again, that evolution, that physicality, like we're getting some counters and some power runs here. Like who are these Bills? What team are we watching?
Yeah, I mean, we're in, 21, or actually not even 21 P. You got Doyle off the right side of as the extra tight end here. The Bills are in an I formation with Gilliam. They're running counter here. This is a slow developing gap type run inside the low red zone in the fourth quarter. First and goal here from the 4-yard line, 10:51 on the clock. This is Singletary's touchdown. So let's start with the left sideline. So you get the blur in Isaiah McKenzie as the eye candy across the formation. You see how that affects the safeties there. They're rocking and rolling, bumping everyone from left to right on the screen. But let's take a look at the point of attack and the block by Deion Dawkins and Bates. So Bates on the snap gets hand leverage on Grady Jarrett. And then you have the widening of the hole from Deion Dawkins. Obviously a really big offensive line. You see how they are able to change and create that alley. You see them cave him in almost all the way to the hash right there. So that allows the right guard, Darrell Williams, to pull. He picks up first color right there. That's the defensive end, and he does a great job of logging him. So as an edge rusher, the edge defender right here in the 2-point kind of comes down right here. You're going to see the read from Darrell Williams. Now, guards are taught either to kick out or log them. So as that guy squeezes that gap and tries squeezing right there, now that gives Williams the log read. So he's got to get his helmet outside and turn that guy inside. Okay. So then here's the next part of this phase. And this is where the physicality comes in from the fullback position in Reggie Gilliam. You see Gilliam open right and then come back across the formation here to pick up Deion Jones. And, look at the pad level of Gilliam on this play. Look at the patience by Devin Singletary as he opens right, comes back on the counter track. He waits for Gilliam to come across on that slow developing play, but here comes a kick out block, and he absolutely wipes out Deion Jones again at the point of attack. Not really Jones's strength against this type of play, but hell of a block from Gilliam again. And then the finish, right, from Devin Singletary for the touchdown.
Another finish from Devin Singletary, stays square, puts his shoulder down, runs through a defensive back, carries the touchdown. You mentioned leverage, and that's really like such an important piece on this play. You highlighted it with Darrell Williams. I really look how low Gilliam gets. He gets underneath Jones and he explodes through him.
Rolls those hips up. Just beautiful.
Textbook. Beautiful. Low, physical, power, explosive. And then Devin Singletary, leverage, power, low, explosive, running through contact. Gilliam almost runs through Jones. Devin Singletary runs through Darren Hall. And then if you rewind it a little bit to, look how pumped Gilliam is.
Look how pumped he is, dude.
Like, that feels good to take someone's soul and score like that. And if you go towards the beginning of the play when Dawkins crashes down, look at the angle in which look how low and the angle he takes. He's not up high. Look at that. Just crashes into the side of a defensive lineman who's already lower than him. So Dawkins doesn't come up high. He doesn't come with poor technique and poor leverage. He tries to match that angle and says, okay, you're going to crash inside and go low. I'm going to go on a low downward angle and just wash you inside and wall off the inside. And now Dawkins' positioning combined with Bates, look at, you highlighted it. Look at, now Dawkins is an extra seal and an extra level. There is no one who can flow from that backside and scrape over the top and make a play on the front side, especially someone like you just said, Oluwakan, who is fast, who's a good flowing linebacker. You can't give him an opportunity like that, and they don't up front. So again, execution and physicality. We could just say those words over and over again because they explain so much of the second half, especially in the run game. And it's a really positive thing to see because we haven't seen this from this team all year.
And we always hear the coaches, especially McDermott, talk about, we got to be able to run the ball when they're expecting it. You know, this is a 4-minute type drill, fourth quarter here, 2nd and 5 situation. Singletary gets 4 yards on this play. But again, that counter run, it's a different look from the Falcons. Here you see Deion Jones kind of shoot that gap versus Dawkins there. So it's a man-on-man. It doesn't allow him to widen the hole against Jarrett on that down block. But once again, now instead you see Singletary get up inside. You see him get up inside, and just look at what Deion Dawkins does to
I feel so bad for Deion Jones.
Just look at him take him for a ride. I mean, talk about reestablishing the line of scrimmage against a really good linebacker. Like, great processing from Deion Dawkins there, just swallowing him up, getting his hands on him, and then just staying engaged and taking him for a ride. Again, only a 4-yard gain, but this is a tone-setting type play. And it really was one of those plays where, like, you know what, the Falcons know what's coming. I mean, this was pretty obvious that they were bringing that same play again. You get the kick out block this time from Darrell Williams instead of that log block. He kicks him out, he walls him, and the play's up inside of that block, and just another strong physical run from the Bills' offensive line and Devin Singletary. Look
at Bates sealing off Grady Jarrett once again. Like, Grady Jarrett slants inside, and Bates is like, all right, cool. Like, I'm just going to seal you and wall you off. Like, we're starting to see established lanes and established holes for the running backs to run through. And I don't think it's any coincidence that the more the Bills have started to switch to more of a gap scheme in terms of their run and starting to use pin and pulls and powers and counters and things that allow their athletic, physical offensive linemen to start to show more athleticism and gain more physicality. We're starting to see a change in the success of the running game and a change in the, mentality of this offense. And Tommy Doyle was an extra lineman on the previous play. He's an extra lineman here again. So you're getting a young guy some quality reps. And here we get another counter. My favorite play on this one is, I'm pretty sure, so when Feliciano pulls around this time, the defender tries to wrong arm him and go inside. And Feliciano's just like, all right, cool, I'm going to log you and just turn you inside. Look at Feliciano isn't the most fleet of foot, and he's not the most athletic. Look at how swift he just turns right away. And, flips those hips, and Moss reads it and is like, all right, cool, let me bounce this outside. Zach Moss is... when you look at it from the sideline, he's like 5 or 6 yards upfield before anybody even touches him. He is untouched 5 to 6 yards upfield. Who would have thought we'd be saying that about a Buffalo Bills running back at this point, given how the running game started in this year? Like, this is just, I love that Feliciano block, especially late in the game. What a good flip and turn from a guy.
Off the bench.
Yep, exactly. Came in cold, literally and figuratively, and gets out in space. His strength isn't movement. It's not athleticism, but he shows an athletic play. Oh, look how he flips those hips, walls it off, and then who's out in front again? Mr. 41, Mr. Reggie Gilliam. Just take advantage of your athletic fullback who also shows that physicality. Guys are getting vertical. Guys are getting upfield. Like, I'm genuinely excited. I love power football and counter football. Like, that's where my, on offense, I was a running back and a slot receiver. Like, you see the smile on your face. I grew up in, GT counters and pulls and reading this lineman. And okay, my read here is I step left and then I come back right for the counter. Like, I love seeing good power football. And you don't see it a lot in today's NFL. Teams are zone-based running teams. The stats last year, there were over 9,000.
It's what pairs well with passing games,
1,000% in today's spread world on offense. And last year there were over 9,000 zone runs and just over 3,000 gap runs. This is a zone world that teams are living in. And seeing the Bills execute in this power way, in this gap scheme way, is genuinely surprising given how they started this year and what their identity is of a Josh Allen offense, of a passing spread offense. And we've talked about the importance of having a pivot. This is the perfect example of it. And I know it was against the Falcons, like we mentioned, but it doesn't matter. The Bills were struggling with their primary option, which is passing the ball with Josh Allen. So they pivoted to something completely different, a power running game, a physical, angry style of run. That's really big, not just for this individual game, but for going forward to know they potentially have that in the bag and they can bust that out if need be. And it's nice to see from them as a whole. And now we have to start talking about how much credit do we give to Ryan Bates because of what he's injected into this offense. And no matter what you're talking about, it's really positive. The evolution of this offense, you did a great job in deciding the theme for this episode, because that's literally what it was, like this evolving in terms of individual play and overall scheme. And it's super important given what this offense wants to be and what they need to do.
Yeah, just the guys like Bates, Singletary, adding Spencer Brown through the draft, and the physicality he brings, his athleticism and length. Obviously, there are just different things they can do. They can do some different things with guys like that. You talked about how not many teams are running gap as much as back in the day, but we saw some I formation counters and stuff like that. Some powers and stuff, but counter bashes. So far this year, last year we did a whole episode in the film room about how Bills transformed to a zone team. And so far this year, like they still are zone. Like if you look at Singletary's stats as a zone runner, per Pro Football Focus, he has 91 runs and 91 zone runs. He has 72 gap runs. Zach Moss has 47 zone runs, 35 gap runs. That's for this year. Now, if we look back to last year, per Pro Football Focus, you see Singletary basically had, let's see here, zone runs last year, again, 97, whereas they had 64 gap, 72 for Moss in zone, 44 in gap. So it's a slight uptick in the gap scheme, but more importantly, when you're looking at this game specifically, and in the games where they did have the ability to run the ball when the defense knew that the run was coming, this one just had a different feel. Yes, Josh Allen struggled in that first half, and they had to pivot to running the ball more. And the Falcons knew that was happening. Like they were patting themselves on the back, like, okay, hey, bring it, bring the run. We're gonna drop guys out. We're going to drop into too high. We're going to drop all these guys out without even reading keys. Run the ball. And the Bills did. And they took it to them. And again, yes, factor in the competition. But more importantly, factor in the style of play from the offensive line. The style of play from Devin Singletary, Zach Moss, Josh Allen as a runner. And that physicality, that element that we hear McDermott talk about every single week. But we saw it on film in this game against a team. Yes, there again, competition does matter and it factors in. But either way, that element of physicality, whether in the run game or in pass protection, was something that we've been wanting from this team. And it's what a better time to start to show that element and to get that confidence. As an offense, as an offensive line, how they're clicking in the run and the pass game, like. This is the time. This is the time to start clicking. And Ryan Bates said it last week. Like they're awake. This offense is woken up now, and they're going to be a dangerous team. And I fully believe that, especially if they are able to add this element of physicality in the pass and the run game. So it ran a little long, Anthony, but I love it. It was a good episode. A completely different episode than last week when it was Josh Allen, running the show with his arm and things like that and just dropping dimes, pulling strings. This was a different episode, but it was fun. And I know the viewers are going to love it because the hog molly's got some shine in this play. The physicality got some shine in this play. So with that said, man, let's wrap it up. Let us know what you got going on this week on the YouTube channel, on Twitter, where they can find you. Give us the goods.
Find me on Twitter at pro__ant. That's pro 2_ANT. It's right. I was so close. It's right there on the little screen right there. I'm pointing to it there. That's the Twitter handle. Give me a follow on the old Twitter. Find me as the co-host here on the Cover One Film Room with yourself, Mr. Eric Turner. And then find me as the host of Disguise Coverage live every Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So that'll be tomorrow for the next live episode of Disguise Coverage. And I will have from Cover One, Mr. Greg Thompson and Aaron Quinn on with me. We're going to do a little playoff primer talking about the potential opponents the Bills could face in the playoffs, who we would like to see them play, who we would not like to see them play, talk about some matchups and some schemability pieces and do a little playoff primer. And also shout out to them because they'll be pulling double duty. So they'll be live with me at 7 p.m. and then they'll be live for the Cover One preview show at 9 p.m. So a lot of good action tomorrow night. And then you can also find me as one of the 3 hosts of the Cover One post-game show live immediately following every Buffalo Bills game, also with Mr. Greg Thompson, Mr. Aaron Quinn, and that's me.
Yeah, the workhorse of Cover One, Mr. Anthony Prohaska of Disguise Coverage. Just a quick programming note for next week. I am traveling on Tuesday, so there's a good possibility that there won't be a show Tuesday, but once we go through the film after the game, especially it's going to be a late Sunday game, we're going to go through the film Monday, Tuesday, and probably even some of Wednesday. If there's some goods that we can bring you, either we'll try to record mid to later in the week, or I'll just punch out some plays real quick on YouTube and do something on my own. Again, bear with us, but thankfully I'll be home for the playoffs. So we're going to have some fun, man. And I hope you guys all have subscribed to the YouTube channel, have gotten into our premium sub, the Slack channel. This is the time of year that you want to do this. This is a new year. Join us in the Slack channel with our premium content, and make sure to subscribe and tell your friends about our YouTube channel, because it's this is where we bring our A game. This is where we stand out from the other brands and creators in Bills Mafia. So,
and it's only going to pick up like the playoff coverage, but then as soon as the playoffs are done, free agency picks up. We're doing salary cap specials. We're doing free agency episodes.
Stop.
Our draft coverage doesn't stop. If you think, we just do the Cover One film room and we're just looking at film for the Bills, wait till the Bills season ends and we're breaking down film of like almost any and every prospect across the board for everything. So the football season does not stop. We at Cover One do not stop. And it may be the off season for other brands or other people. There is no off season for us. And with the draft and free agency around the corner, it will be just as busy as ever. Get those subscriptions. If you're a Bills fan, it's a must.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. Again, that's Anthony Prohaska from Disguised Coverage. I'm Eric Turner. We'll see you in the film room next week.